Greetings, my dear beloved children. For my previous message to be continued, I would like to explain to you the way adrenochrome influences people, and especially in humans whose energy structure seems to be unable to take in such a high vibration substance. It is rather complicated to formulate in a human language since all the processes occur at the subtle level and only their consequences show at the physical level. But you can try to imagine these things happening the following way. As a result of particular satanic rituals that have been verified for centuries, the high-ranked demons, who specialize in them, at the moment of divine particle catapulting into the higher world, snatch out some of its energy and then condense it at the physical level in the pineal gland of the person killed. And next, by means of crystallization, the very substance forms, the one that contains the immortality energy the thing reptiloids are deprived of, since their souls, unlike human ones, are mortal. And I will focus on this now. What is a reptiloid soul? This is a self-destructing energy unit. It does possess conscience, but it is not divine but complies with the clear-cut programs embedded into it. This soul is either moved in a human body on its own or as the other one alongside with the soul already inhabiting this body. Having been in human bodies for many centuries, reptiloid souls have adjusted to life on Earth. While reptiloids themselves hardly differed from common people in appearance now. Nevertheless, they are creatures featuring absolutely different subtle material structure. As you already know, the reptiloids embodied on Earth have a rigorous hierarchy. So, while common reptiloids live and die in a natural way, the high caste has arranged to prolong their stay on Earth as much as possible. Yet, they do it not out of their own will either, but automatically because their conscience is controlled from above by their masters. Well, who do they try to extend life as much as possible? Those of their servants who have reached the top of power pyramid on your planet and who have real impact on the global developments on Earth and, naturally, most negative impact, such as, for example, unleashing wars and revolutions, economic and financial crises, in a word, on anything that encourages enormous outbursts of negative energy by humans. And so as to extend life of these masters of destinies, they start to artificially maintain them. And one of the means of maintaining life in them is consuming of adrenochrome that promotes cells regeneration of physical body and gives their souls a fresh lease of life and energy they stole from a person. Another means is an instilled lodger, or, to be exact, a new soul that was deliberately created for this creature and was programmed so that it scans from the etheric level the life experience acquired by a certain reptiloid on Earth and gets adjusted to the physical body it was instilled in as well as to its living conditions. And the third means is cloning, which gains increasing popularity on Earth, not only in respect of reptiloids but also of people at that. As a follow-up to my previous message, now I would like to focus on each of the means described by me that are used by the members of the world government and their henchmen to extend life, keeping their power, health and even youth. So, the first means is consumption of adrenochrome. And for a start, let us look into the way it influences the reptiloid body. Of course, before all, it makes an energy impact since it features tremendous charge of creativity energy, which is typical only of the creatures possessing God particle. We can say that consuming adrenochrome, reptiloids steal human creative potential and power of spirit. But this divine power is used by them not for the good of others but for their master good Archon, and hunt for the energies desired by him, the ones of the lowest vibrations they provoke millions of people for. Thus, they redirect enormous energy potential of humans and their spiritual power the wrong way, taking advantage of people might and turning it against people themselves. This is exactly the reason, my dear, why you must not pay back evil with evil, aggression with aggression, because all these energies return to you again, being intensified, and this is what those at the helm of your world are striving for. Beside the energy impact, adrenochrome encourages their physical body's recovery. How does it happen? It triggers the process of body cells regeneration, since this substance contains the phantom of immortality code, its etheric imprint. It is explained by the fact that human genome in its pure form features the matrix of existence in higher dimensions with different time parameters and different opportunities. And as you already know, in these dimensions physical bodies enjoy quite different characteristics. While in the third dimension world, due to your subtle bodies being compressed to the most, they get old very quickly. In the higher vibration worlds, the physical bodies of the creatures existing there are rarefied and can be transformed by power of thought. Well, in spite of the fact that divine souls live in a variety of worlds and civilizations, their common genome core features ideal pure origin of tremendous energy and physical potential. These are the energies contained in adrenochrome, and getting into a reptiloid body they produce a rejuvenating effect on it. Yet, this effect is a short-term one, for it lacks connection with the main component of human genome, divine conscience, which reptiloids are deprived of by their origin and subtle material structure. Therefore, to keep afloat they have to get and consume this substance that works wonders for them over and over again. But even in case of adrenochrome getting into the body of a human, it cannot realize its divine potential to a full extent because it is consumed by people who are aware of the means this substance was obtained by and, consequently, who have gone all to pieces. They are the ones spoken about as those who sold their soul to devil. It is actually true, these people literally sell their souls for fame, success and wealth, which sometimes results in a complete lapse of their souls after their physical medium leaving the physical level. This is the very involution moral lapse that nourishes Archon and his servants. And unfortunately, in the third dimension world it happens quite often. Greetings, my dear beloved children. Now we will study the second means to extend reptiloid life in the physical body, and it consists in instilling of another soul that is more viable reptiloid one naturally into an existing body. It should be mentioned, it occurs rather seldom and only in cases of barest necessity, since unlike humans reptiloids do not possess the free will. Everything is arranged above by the initiative of their creators. In what way does it happen? The thing is that after the physical body death reptiloid souls go away to a certain place specially allotted for them at the subtle level. This is some kind of an incubator of reptiloid souls that are produced there artificially, while the discharged material is utilized. But before utilization these souls for some time keep their unity and conscience, and the dragons controlling the process of birth and death of those under their wardship have opportunity to shuffle these souls in case of emergency. Thus, for example, into a decrepit body of a reptiloid that has had their days but whose presence on Earth is essential to them, they can instill a soul of a young and strong reptiloid who died as a result of an accident. For example, their technologies allow them to implant into their conscience the old reptiloid memory and experience whose body the soul is being instilled into. Sometimes it does not happen all at once, and the old native memory breaks through, which is regarded as senile dementia of the owner of two souls. But then everything settles down, and a man of senile appearance suddenly gains power and clarity of mind. As a result, he goes on carrying out according to the installed program everything required from him. Perhaps many of you were surprised at how long some royal families and hidden government members live who in spite of their more than advanced age lead quite an active life. It is explained by the fact that by this or that means their life has already been extended for several times, and sometimes more than one means was used for that. Why is incarnation important in this case beside recovery of the physical body? As a matter of fact, unlike humans possessing immortal souls, reptiloid souls get old and die with their physical bodies since they are just frameworks their physical bodies are threaded on. This is the reason why under some circumstances emotional outbursts or being exposed to high vibration space their souls can show outside, which some people happen to see. These souls have a reptile shape and only their physical casing is disguised as human. Sometimes, in rare cases, a human half-bred possessing a human in a reptiloid soul evicts the reptiloid soul from their body as their vibrations are increasing. And if it is a young and healthy soul, it can also be used for instilling into a senile body of another reptiloid instead of being directed to recycling. I see, my dear, that some of you are at a loss why I tell you in details about the things so unpleasant and scary for you. But I would like you to realize to a full degree what world you used to live in, how different it is from the one you imagined, and to see truth with no embellishment so as not to go on believing the things authorities and the mass media under their control are trying to impose on you. The masks they have put on people are actually designed to conceal their own faces and criminal actions. Yet, despite all their tricks, these masks will be thrown off in the nearest future now, and you should be ready for this. Well, we will move on to the third means of existence extension for the reptiloids who for these or those reasons are needed by their creators on Earth being embodied, and we will talk about cloning. As I have already said in my series of messages on reptiloids and clones, cloning was commercialized on Earth long ago, with the cloning technologies being provided to Earthlings by extraterrestrial civilizations with membership in the Coalition of the Grey. Yet, famous people cloning is used by high and mighty in cases of emergencies since clones require constant control over their conscience, otherwise, they will be easily recognized in spite of the fact that they are exact copies of their prototypes. Well, what are the cases when, for example, a president is cloned? More often, when they get out of control of those who govern them, which though rarely still happens. And if puppeteers consider their presence on Earth appropriate due to, for instance, their popularity with a nation, they neutralize them physically and replace with a clone who starts governing the country according to their clear instructions now. But more often it happens not to pure reptiloids, for it is easy to replace a soul for them having programmed it in compliance with a new physical medium, but to humans or those possessing two souls. Quite often there are created twin clones of people or reptiloids in bodies so that they participate in crowd scenes, appearing in the places fraught with some danger for the originals, or simply so as to make time for things more important for them. Frequently, those for some reasons believed to be people, actors, celebrities, devils are actually their clones. The only problem that arises in cloning is impossibility of natural aging of the clone body, which is only typical of creatures possessing souls, be it the human or reptiloid soul. Therefore, as long as the original gets mature, either living or passed away, when they create clones of the age corresponding to the standards of the third dimension world person. But, as a rule, they still look much younger for their age. Anyway, because they do not experience natural feelings and emotions, it is quite easy to identify them due to their too ideal appearance. Such clones are more like dolls alive, lacking any slightest flaws typical of human bodies, with each of them having their own unique peculiarities. As you see, my dear, reptiloids have both made their firm ground on your planet, having overwhelmed its rightful inhabitants, and learned to extend their life, taking advantage of human energy and spiritual potential. And especially now, as Earth vibrations are swiftly increasing, their hatred to humans have reached its climax, and in their powerless anger they are doing their best to humiliate humans to the utmost in the end and make their conscience totally submitted. This is what you observe at every corner now. This is what your final durability test is, and I believe you will pass it in a proper manner. So now, when you know who actually governs your world, it is time to tell you in some details about the pressure tools used in all the process. As you have already understood, the Center for Economy and Finance Control and, most important, human minds control is in one place, but not in the hands of those by many considered as masters of the world and owners of the planet. They are just marionettes controlled from without by more powerful creatures. And to make this control run smooth with no failures, these marionettes are bound with each other by frank pledge and blood ties, or, to be more exact, by a blood oath. But to make it easier for you to understand what this secret hierarchy power structure is based on, we will have to turn to the past again. For his plan to be successfully implemented, Archon needed to impart an heir of reptiloids being chosen, which would boost their self-esteem and justify all their evil deeds. So, he declared himself their deity and them themselves his faithful servants. Yet, since any religion assumes a certain system of beliefs and rituals, he worked them out really thoroughly, laying special emphasis on the energies most desired by him, such as cruelty, pride, lust for power, voluptuousness, greed and sadism. He announced all the most disgusting human passions to them as evidence of their unlimited strength and superiority over others. And so as to consolidate this superiority and prove their strength, they were suggested going through a series of sacrifice to their deity. This way the initiation into high reptiloid caste was held, and in exchange for their blood offering, reptiloids were granted almost limitless opportunities on Earth. Well, how could Archon influence people's destinies and global events on Earth in general? Before all, he concluded an alliance with the dragon race, whose products reptiloids are, and this energy symbiosis of the low vibration civilization of the dragons and Archon, who is the embodiment of the evil on Earth, being united by a shared goal of Earth enslavement, resulted in the fact that the creatures in their grip have been controlling your planet for many centuries. And in my next message I will give you some details on this cooperation functioning and on what its binding principle was. Today I will tell you who swayed the destinies of reptiloids at the early stage of Earth conquest. The dragons were perfectly aware of the fact that they would not be able to get control over the planet inhabited by human gods because of a huge vibration gap. Then they made it their aim to achieve at any cost that human vibrations decrease to the level at which they could influence their conscience. And to speed up the process, they decided to benefit from Archon's service. Thereby, convergence of their interests resulted in the energies of low vibrations untypical of Earthlings starting to arrive at Earth, and the reptiloids being embodied grounded them, intensifying them with their own negative thoughts and emotions. In other words, your planet was bombarded with negative energies from the subtle level by Archon. While on Earth these energies were received and spread more and more by low-vibration creatures who reptiloids are. Unlike humans, they took these energies in as native and usual ones that they were imbued with at birth by their creators. Thereby, the circle of evil was initiated, and it has been around on Earth since then for millennia. Archon, who shared his riches at the initial stage, got them back at a high interest rate, and not only from reptiloids but from humans, too, whose nature was so perverted by them that even people started to generate energies of lowest vibrations. But the dragons, as well as Archon, realized quite well that they should not let this process take its course. Therefore, they made up their mind to make themselves safe and set ever-burning flame of evil that will be passed from hands to hands by the high-caste reptiloids by means of certain beliefs, symbols and rituals. It is them that became the symbol of them being chosen, exceptional, and of their impunity among those craving for power, money and worship, and so as to reinforce their influence on their servants and make their souls totally submitted to them. These rituals were rendered satanic with blood offering. The main principle of the religion created by Archon and the dragons was the postulate divide and rule, which implied the division into slaves and the chosen. High-caste reptiloids who had had the rite of their deities' worship were proclaimed the chosen, while all the rest of the population was proclaimed slaves. During the rite of passage, the dark forces channel was opened so wide that for a split second Archon himself appeared there as a huge being with burning eyes and horns on his head. This is where such image of the devil came from, as well as the expression to sell one's soul to the devil. During these rites, reptiloid souls got tremendous infeeds of negative energies that later resulted in grave evil deeds on Earth, unleashing of wars, revolutions, national conflicts, humiliation of people, their conscience manipulation, human moral lapse, and many more. Like bees gather honey, they accumulated poison, all the negative energies they fed on themselves and nourished their patrons on. For the talk about the secret web of initiates that has enveloped all your planet to be continued, I would like to tell you about one more peculiarity of their interaction, and it is in that the system worked out by them allows them to recognize each other unmistakably. Being sure of their exceptionality and impunity, in the course of time they stopped hiding it from people, regarding them as faceless crowd of slaves. And in recent decades there started a true bacchanalia revelry of all the dark henchmen. Why is it right now that they lost caution and literally exposed their belonging to the dark forces for show? It is accounted for by the fact that it present the high vibration energies arriving at Earth force out from the physical and subtle levels of your planet, all the dirt being manifested in the most disgusting way in all the spheres of your life. In other words, it is time when what is done by night appears by day. And since reptiloids do not feature the freedom of will and their masters have left the near-Earth space, their conscience takes these new energies in the way that highlights their hidden essence. Having become deprived of the guidance from above, they do it almost automatically, showing their being chosen and belonging to high and mighty. All the blunders and slip-ups, as well as official powers' actions lacking any logic or common sense all over the world, are a glaring example of it. The same happens now in the world of show business, too. A lot of famous singers and stars openly demonstrate the symbols indicating their belonging to the dark forces. Yet, it also happens because this way at the subconscious level they are trying to protect themselves by the usual symbols and images from the upcoming catastrophe, the old world order destruction, and Earth entering the new high vibration space. They feel they have had their day's end, yet do not believe that people who they always treated as weak-willed obedient herd are capable of winning them over, and they are struggling for their life to the last, using their usual arms, provoking people for low passions and most disgusting emotions. But you see, my dear, how many people have recovered from this lethargy, and with every single day they will be growing in number. And you can help them in this, creating favorable vibration background and conveying true information in the form they are ready to accept it. Before I tell you how the dark forces influence different countries' governments, I would like to highlight for you the mechanism of symbolism impact on people. And now we will focus not on its physical manifestation, which is general symbols, but on the things that occur at the subtle level at the moment of these symbols being shown. As you already know, any religion has its own egregor, and the more people practice it, the more powerful the egregor is. And, of course, the religion practiced by reptiloids and their henchmen is not an exception. And since it was one of the first to arise even earlier than all the rest religions arose, the ones that were artificially created by reptiloids, again, its egregor is not only one of the most powerful but one of the most destructive as well, both for people and for the planet in general. So now, reptiloids with all their facilities maintain this egregor, the one that itself makes tremendous energy influence on human conscience, keeping it within the bounds of duality, which prevents human collective conscience vibrations from increasing. Being aware of the fact that Earth is moving into a new energy space with no place for them, by all the means available to them, reptiloids strive to keep it within the former reality. This is the reason why they have recently started to have their satanic rites more and more often, which could not remain unnoticeable. By the way, these rites can also be applied to color revolutions, wars, terrorist acts, artificially promoted national conflicts, with human moral suffering and death toll as high as hundreds of thousands, are also offerings to Archon and his servants. This insatiable monster and his egregore are nourished by them on people pain, energies of fear, despair and powerlessness. While the satanic rites held by them, an open demonstration of their symbols, involve a huge amount of people. What, for example, happens at the concerts of popular satanic singers gathering audience of many thousands? Their symbols attract all the dark forces to these places, therefore their fans literally lose their mind, turning into a mad fanatic crowd that generates the lowest energies, sustaining the egregore of Archon. Thus, by means of Satanist symbols there is performed human conscience control, with people unconsciously and voluntarily giving their energy and their inexhaustible divine potential to the power of the dark forces, who then use this natural gift of people against them themselves. That is why it is fanatism that has become reptiloids' favorite tool for human conscience control, and they do their best to make it run the show in all the spheres of your life, in political, social, religious and national ones. As far as their symbols are concerned, they are extra fuel to inflame human passions and tie the negative energies generated by people not only to the egregores of certain types of low vibration energies but also with the egregore of Archon, thereby fortifying reptiloids' ground on Earth. Well, we move on to the talk on how disembodied low vibration creatures can influence people's destinies by means of the country's heads the former live in. As a matter of fact, carefully designed mechanism of influence on people who came to power is simple to the utmost. It is based on the time-tested principle of divide and rule, as well as self-importance exaggeration and the feeling of belonging to the chosen. And the dual world you live in facilitates this the best way. But we will start with the fact that from the times immemorial on your planet there has been around a clear power hierarchy, a pyramid, to be exact. To get a clear idea of it, you can imagine it as a stepped pyramid, the ziggurat. At the top of it there is Archoin, a concentration and embodiment of evil. A step down the pyramid there are his servants, demons of power, cupidity, greed, cruelty, voluptuousness and many other vices typical of the inhabitants of Earth. Why it is demons? Because these creatures are also a concentration of certain negative energies. For the centuries of their service to Archon they have grown into real giants, powerful masters of these passions. They are closely tied up to their master by energy channels. It can be said that Archon has fragmented himself into narrow focused demons. A level down our ziggurat there are Archons to actualize the dragons who have made a deal with him on Earth conquest. Further down are the dragon reptiles, who are the dragon's hands for implementing their plans on Earth. But their world direct operators have become high caste reptiloids embodied as humans, who are at the next step of the ziggurat. And eventually, at the very bottom of the pyramid there are middle caste reptiloids efficiently performing the orders of their direct bosses, high caste reptiloids. There are 6 steps all in all and 6 levels of subordination. What is so complex hierarchy of power for? Firstly, for total control of Archon will execution at all the levels of existence. Secondly, for more efficient coordination of the events taking place at the physical and subtle level of Earth, since they are interconnected and closely knit together. Thirdly, for rendering more important and exceptional those at the lower steps of this hierarchy ladder. And in my following messages I will tell you in details about each story inhabitants of our imaginary ziggurat. Well, let us go on talking about the structure of power pyramid settled on Earth. It has already been said enough about Archon, therefore we will move on right to the next step down the dark forces pyramid that is occupied by an army of demons, true and trusted servants of Archon. Why has he fragmented himself into separate energy units? The only reason is to collect his tribute as negative energies in a more efficient and fruitful way. Since there are a great number of kinds of negative emotions, Each of them got in charge of the demon specializing in just this sort of energy. It was done so that all low vibration energies flow together in one place and then being concentrated were delivered above to Archon, where they intermingle, making each other stronger and nourishing the universe evil. In the course of society development there appeared new energies and a variety of their shades. As an example, there can be mentioned a fashion for glamour life and all sorts of plastic surgery so as to correspond to the artificially created ideal. As you have probably guessed, this is another brainchild of reptiloids designed for depersonalization of humans, depriving them of their natural divine individual features. So, a lot of people, especially women, do not see through the subterfuge generating as a result the energy of depersonalization. Yes, my dear, even the energy type like this exists on Earth now, and it has already brought up a demon of enormous sizes, and now it is also sustained by the people who have dutifully put on face masks. Well, what is the mechanism of negative energy's passage from people to demons? This process is actively taken part in by astral beings of all kinds that run errands for their bosses, who demons are. It can be compared with your large corporations, with thousands of small clerks being subordinate to their chiefs. The same way astral beings of the astral level of Earth can influence low subtle bodies of people, etheric, emotional, mental and causal ones, which they keenly do all the time. In my series of messages on the world of astral, I focused on all its levels, kinds of astral beings and the means they affect people, so now I am not going to repeat myself but just will mention that there is a certain hierarchy among them as well. Just as large companies are subdivided into departments, groups and sections, each demon here runs his department of offense, for example, with his employees bending over backwards so as to get more energy for their boss, provoking people for offense of all sorts, stirring it up by all the means available to them. In their turn, those in charge of departments, groups and sections, just as in real companies, get up the ladder, growing into demon creatures of a certain rank. Unfortunately, it is this demonic system of power that your society was based on, which resulted in such regrettable consequences. And this is the reason why people who have come to power so quickly end up with a moral lapse. Here we will stop for today. Loving you endlessly. Father Absolute spoke to you.